What happens when a titan of industry trades his corner office for a worn hoodie and walks into his own business as a stranger? James Carter, the 45-year-old founder of Carter Auto Group, never imagined he'd uncover a betrayal of his life's work this way. His empire of 35 car dealerships across the country was built from a single lot he'd opened at 28, fueled by a simple creed: treat every customer with respect, for they're not just buying a car, they're entrusting you with their dreams. But lately, cracks have begun to show: slipping sales, complaints of rude service, and whispers of discontent among employees. When a scathing email from a customer landed in his inbox, describing a manager's unprofessional behavior at one of his flagship dealerships, James knew he couldn't rely on reports or excuses anymore. To find the truth, he'd have to see it through the eyes of those he'd sworn to serve. Disguised as one of them, James sat in his sleek office on the top floor of a glass tower, the city skyline sprawling beyond his window. Spreadsheets glowed on his computer, each number a silent accusation. 10 of his 35 dealerships were underperforming, with the suburban flagship location drawing the most complaints. Rude manager, lied about car condition, one review read. Another, felt like they couldn't wait to get rid of me. James rubbed his temples, his jaw tight. He'd started Carter Auto Group washing cars as a teenager, selling them by 20, and building his first dealership with nothing but grit and a vision. Back then, he knew every employee's name, shook every customer's hand. Now, with 35 locations and thousands of employees, he felt like a captain steering a ship. He could no longer see. "Laura, am I losing touch?" he asked, turning to Laura Bennett, his assistant of 15 years. Laura, a sharp woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor, leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed. "You're not losing touch, James," she said, her voice blunt but kind. "You're just not there. You're reading reports from people who haven't sold a car in years. If you want the truth, go get it yourself." Her words hit like a spark. James leaned back, his mind racing. He'd been so consumed by board meetings, expansion plans, and investor demands that he hadn't visited a dealership as anything but a CEO in over a year. The email from the customer, a man named Daniel Hayes, kept replaying in his mind. "Your manager dismissed my concerns about a faulty car. I trusted your brand, and I was treated like a nuisance." James had built his empire on trust, on the idea that every customer deserved respect. If that was failing, he needed to know why. "What if I went in undercover?" he said, half to himself. Not as James Carter, but as nobody. Just a guy looking to buy a car. Laura raised an eyebrow, her skepticism clear. "You? Undercover?" "James, your face is on every billboard from here to the coast. Someone's bound to recognize you." "Not if I don't look like me," he countered, a grin spreading across his face. The idea was reckless, exhilarating, and absolutely necessary. He couldn't trust filtered reports or polished presentations. He needed to feel the pulse of his business, the impatience of a customer, the pressure on his staff, the unfiltered truth. Laura sighed, sensing defeat. "Fine, but if you get caught, don't expect me to clean up the PR mess when CEO Plays Spy goes viral." James spent the next 2 days preparing. He contacted a professional makeup artist, Rachel, who'd worked on film sets. In her cluttered studio, she transformed him into Michael Larson, a 50-something everyman with a graying beard, wire-rimmed glasses, and a slightly weathered face. Prosthetics softened his jawline, and a faded baseball cap hid his trademark dark hair. The mirror showed a stranger gruff, unremarkable, the kind of guy who'd blend into a crowd. Rachel handed him a worn jacket and a pair of scuffed sneakers. "You're Mike now," she said, "but you've got to sell it. Slouch a bit. Talk slower. Don't act like you own the place." James practiced in front of a mirror, roughening his voice, shedding his confident stride for a hesitant shuffle. He spent an evening studying car buying basics, models, features, financing terms to sound convincing as a first-time buyer. Laura even mocked up a fake ID and a backstory. Mike Larson, a retired mechanic looking for a reliable sedan. The anticipation was electric, but so was the fear. What if he was recognized? What if he found problems he couldn't fix? Worst of all, what if the values he built his company on had been lost? The chosen dealership was a flagship location in a bustling suburban hub, one of the chain's original sites, but recently plagued by complaints. James had never visited it himself, another sign of how far he'd drifted. On a crisp Monday morning, he parked his car a block away, adjusted his cap, and took a deep breath. His heart pounded as he approached the gleaming glass facade of Carter Auto Group, the logo a stylized wheel with a rising sun staring back at him. The lot sparkled with rows of sedans, SUVs, and trucks, their windshields flashing in the sunlight. Inside, the showroom buzzed with activity, the air thick with the scent of new leather and tire rubber. The atmosphere, though, fell off. Sales. Associates moved briskly, their smiles practiced but fleeting. Customers wandered the lot, some ignored, others trailed by pushy reps. At the reception desk, a young woman with a name tag reading Sarah sat scrolling on her phone, barely glancing up as James approached. Hi, he said, channeling Mike's gravelly tone. I'm looking to buy a car. Can you help me out? Sarah sighed, pointing toward the showroom without looking at him. Talk to a sales guy over there. I'm busy. Her tone was flat, dismissive, and James raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. He wandered into the showroom, his eyes scanning the scene. A young couple haggled with a rep over a minivan, their voices tense. An older man stood alone by a pickup truck, clearly waiting for attention. The warmth James had envisioned for his dealerships, the sense of welcome, of partnership, was nowhere to be found. His attention was drawn to a heated exchange near a sleek sedan. A young man, no older than 25, stood with his arms crossed, his face a mix of frustration and defeat. Across from him was Robert Mitchell, the manager, his tall frame and sharp suit exuding authority that bordered on arrogance. James edged closer, catching the young man's words. The car broke down. A week after I bought it. You said it was in perfect condition. Robert waved a hand, his tone cold. You signed the paperwork, buddy. If you didn't want the car, you shouldn't have bought it. Not my problem now. The young man whose name tag on his jacket read, Daniel Hayes, looked crushed, but I trusted you. I needed that car for work. You promised. Promises aren't guarantees, Robert cut in, leaning forward, his voice dripping with disdain. If you're done wasting my time, I've got real customers to deal with. James's chest tightened. This wasn't just poor service. It was a betrayal of everything he stood for. Daniel's shoulders slumped, his voice barely audible as he muttered, Fine, and turned away. James wanted to intervene, to demand Robert explain himself, but he held back. He needed more evidence, a clearer picture of the rot in his dealership. Instead, he approached Robert, his voice steady as Mike Larson. Excuse me, sir, I'm interested. Mrs. N, could you guide me? Robert barely glanced at him, his eyes scanning James's hoodie and sneakers. Look around, he said, gesturing vaguely. Prices are on the cars. If you're serious, come back with a budget. His tone was dismissive, and he walked away before James could respond. James stood there, his heart sinking. This was the man leading his flagship dealership, the face of his brand. The anger was immediate, but so was the guilt. How had he let this happen? He'd trusted managers like Robert to uphold his values, but that trust had been misplaced. He decided to stay longer, to observe more, maybe talk to other employees. As the showroom buzzed around him, James caught sight of a young salesman, Ethan Parker, helping a customer with genuine enthusiasm. His smile warmed despite the chaotic pace. Ethan's energy stood out, a flicker of hope in the cold atmosphere. James made a mental note to speak with Ethan later, to learn what kept him going in a place like this. For now, he'd keep playing Mike Larson, gathering the truth piece by piece. Tomorrow, he'd push deeper, maybe pose as a job applicant to see the dealership from the inside. Whatever it took, he'd uncover the full extent of the problem and fix it. As he left the dealership, the glowing Carter Auto Group sign loomed. Above, a reminder of the legacy he'd built and the fight to save it. James Carter woke to the faint hum of his hotel alarm, his mind already racing with the images from yesterday's undercover visit to his flagship Carter Auto Group dealership. As Mike Larson, the unassuming everyman in a faded hoodie and scuffed sneakers, he'd seen the cracks in his empire firsthand. Sarah's dismissive attitude at the reception desk, Robert Mitchell's cold arrogance toward a struggling customer, and the absence of the warmth he'd built his brand on. But one day, as a customer wasn't enough to understand the full scope of the problem. To dig deeper, James needed to step into the shoes of his employees, to feel the weight of their daily grind. Today, he'd infiltrate the dealership as a temporary sales associate, and the thought sent a mix of adrenaline and dread coursing through him. He adjusted his disguise in the bathroom mirror, tugging the baseball cap lower and smoothing the fake graying beard. His voice, practiced to a gravelly drawl, felt foreign but convincing. "Just here to do my job," he muttered, testing Mike Larson's persona. The dealership's gleaming lot awaited, a maze of polished cars under the morning sun, but James knew the real challenge lay inside among the staff, the systems, and the culture he'd let slip. He grabbed the fake resume Laura Bed had crafted Mike Larson, a former mechanic with spotty sales experience, and headed out, parking a block away to avoid suspicion. The dealership was already buzzing when James arrived, the showroom filled with the low hum of negotiations and the clink of coffee mugs. Sarah, the receptionist, was at her post, scrolling on her phone as usual, barely acknowledging him as he approached. "I'm Mike Larson," James said, keeping his tone hesitant. "I was told to start as a temp sales associate today." Sarah sighed, not looking up. "Talk to Robert. He's in the back." She gestured vaguely toward the manager's office, her indifference a stark reminder of yesterday's cold welcome. James nodded, weaving through the showroom where sales reps chatted with customers, their smiles more performative than genuine. The air smelled of leather and polish, but the energy felt strained, as if everyone was moving through a script. Robert Mitchell emerged from his office, his sharp suit and towering frame exuding authority. He glanced at James's resume for half a second before tossing it onto a cluttered desk. "Mike, right? We're short-staffed, so you're on the floor today. Shadow Ethan Parker. He'll show you how things work. Don't waste my time." His tone was clipped, his eyes already back on his phone. James nodded, suppressing the urge to call out Robert's carelessness. The hiring process was a formality at best, another red flag in a growing list. Ethan Parker, the young salesman James had noticed yesterday for his genuine enthusiasm, was at the far end of the showroom, explaining a sedan's features to a middle-aged couple. His dark hair was neatly combed, his smile warm but tired, as if he were carrying more than his share of the load. When the couple walked away, Ethan spotted James and waved him over. "Hey, you must be Mike," he said, his voice friendly but guarded. "Welcome to the chaos. Ready to jump in?" James scratched the back of his neck, playing the part of a nervous temp. "Hope so. Been a while since I sold cars. What's the deal here?" Ethan chuckled, handing James a tablet with the dealership's inventory. "It's a lot, but stick with me. You'll mostly be greeting customers, showing models, maybe running numbers if they're serious. Just don't expect much hand-holding from Robert. His tone held a hint of frustration, quickly masked by a shrugged nod as the morning unfolded. James shadowed Ethan, struggling to keep up with the fast-paced world of car sales. He fumbled with the tablet's interface, misquoting a truck's horsepower to a customer and earning a patient correction from Ethan. "It's all good, man," Ethan sighed, his voice low. "Takes time. Just keep the customer smiling." James marveled at Ethan's composure, his ability to stay warm and professional despite the pressure. But he also noticed the strain Ethan's quick glances toward Robert's office, the way his shoulders tensed when a sale fell through. The real trouble came during the midday rush. The showroom was packed, customers test driving SUVs, haggling over prices, and crowding the finance desk. James watched Ethan juggle multiple clients, his energy unflagging even as he fielded complaints about wait times. Robert, meanwhile, stayed in his office, emerging only to bark orders. "Ethan, get that contract signed," he shouted across the floor, ignoring a customer's question about warranties. James's jaw tightened, but he stayed in character, helping Ethan guide a young woman through a sedan's features. Then, a new figure caught James's eye. Natalie Green, a sales associate in her late 20s with a sharp smile and a confident strut. She was Robert's favorite, according to Ethan's whispered aside, and it showed. Natalie spent more time chatting with Robert than working the floor, her laughter echoing from the office. When Ethan asked her to cover a customer while he finalized a deal, she rolled her eyes. "Handle it yourself, Ethan. I'm not your assistant." Her tone was sharp, and James saw Ethan's face tighten, though he said nothing. The breaking point came when the dealership's computer system crashed, freezing the inventory and financing software. Customers groaned as deals stalled, and a line formed at the finance desk. Ethan scrambled to reboot the system, his fingers flying over the keyboard, while Natalie leaned against the counter, scrolling on her phone. A customer, a father with a toddler in tow, approached her, frustrated. "I've been waiting 20 minutes to sign my papers. Can you help?" Natalie barely looked up. "Talk to Ethan. He's handling it." The father's face reddened, and James stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "Sir, I'll check on it for you. Sorry for the wait." He shot Natalie a pointed look, but she just shrugged, sauntering off. Ethan, sweating under the pressure, finally got the system back online. But the damage was done. The father stormed out, muttering about taking his business elsewhere. Robert emerged, his face a mask of irritation. "Ethan, what the hell? You're making us look incompetent. Fix this mess." His voice carried, drawing stares from customers and staff alike. "It wasn't his fault," James said, unable to stay silent. "The system crashed. Ethan's been handling everything." Robert turned, his eyes narrowing. "Who are you to talk back, Mike? You're a temp. Stay in your lane." Ethan gave James a quick, grateful nod, but his expression was weary, as if used to taking the blame. During a brief lull, James pulled Ethan aside near the coffee machine. "Does Robert always come down on you like that?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. Ethan hesitated, glancing over his shoulder. "Pretty much. He's tough on everyone, but especially me. Says I'm too soft with customers. Natalie gets a pass because she's tight with him. It's just exhausting." His voice dropped, a mix of frustration and resignation. "Why? Do you stay?" James pressed, his heart heavy. Ethan sighed, stirring his coffee. "I need the job. My dad's out of work, and I'm helping with bills. Plus, I love selling cars, helping people find the right one. I want to be a manager someday, but Robert makes it feel impossible." James's chest ached. Ethan's passion was exactly what he wanted in his team, yet it was being crushed under Robert's leadership. He thought of Daniel Hayes, the customer whose car broke down, And the parallel struck him. Both Ethan and Daniel had trusted Carter Auto Group, only to be let down. James jotted in his notebook. Robert toxic leadership, favors Natalie. Ethan dedicated, underappreciated. System failures ignored Dot as the shift ended. James helped Ethan tidy the showroom, stacking brochures and wiping down counters. The dealership was quiet now. The last customer's gone. Ethan paused, his voice soft. You're not bad for a temp, Mike. Most guys would have bailed by now. Thanks, James said, his gruff tone masking his admiration. You're the one keeping this place together, Ethan. Ethan's smile was tired but genuine, a flicker of hope in the gloom. James left the dealership that evening, his notebook heavy with observations. The guilt was sharper. Now he built this empire, yet people like Ethan were struggling under it. He sat in his car, staring at the glowing Carter Auto Group sign. Tomorrow he'd try a different role, maybe shadowing the service department. See how deep the problems ran. Robert's arrogance, Natalie's complicity, and the broken systems were just a start. Whatever he found, he'd face it head on. The truth was out there, and he was closer to it than ever. The fifth day of James Carter's undercover mission at Carter Auto Group dawned with a restless energy that mirrored the storm clouds gathering over the suburban skyline. As Mike Larson, the gruff temporary sales associate, James adjusted his worn baseball cap and smoothed his fake beard, the weight of his observations growing heavier with each shift. He'd spent the week witnessing the dysfunction at his flagship dealership, Robert Mitchell's arrogant leadership, Natalie Green's complicity, and the strain on Ethan Parker, the young salesman whose dedication kept the place afloat. Yesterday's computer system crash had exposed the cracks in operations, with Robert blaming Ethan while Natalie shirked responsibility. James's notebook was filled with damning notes. Robert toxic, favors Natalie. Ethan overworked, undervalued. Systems failing. Today, he vowed to push deeper, to uncover the full extent of the rot before acting. But he wasn't prepared for the crisis that would force his hand. The dealership opened under a drizzle, the lot's polished cars gleaming. Despite the gray light, James clocked in, assigned to the service department to observe how repairs and customer complaints were handled. The service bay smelled of oil and rubber, its hum of tools and radios a stark contrast to the showroom's polished chaos. Ethan was on the sales floor, juggling early customers, while Robert was in his office, as usual, his voice drifting through the door as he laughed with Natalie. The service manager, a harried man named Tom, showed James the ropes, logging repair orders, checking vehicle statuses, and fielding customer calls. "Keep up, Mike," Tom said, his tone brisk but not unkind. "We're slammed today." James nodded, his eyes scanning the bay. Technicians worked on lifted cars, but the equipment looked outdated, and a stack of unprocessed repair orders sat on Tom's desk. He overheard a technician mutter about a broken diagnostic machine, forcing manual checks that slowed everything down. Another red flag, James thought, adding it to his mental list. He glanced toward the showroom, where Ethan was helping a customer test drive an SUV, his smile warm despite the hectic pace. The trouble started mid-morning when a VIP customer, Mr. Gregory Larson, a local business owner with a history of bulk purchases, stormed into the service department. His face was red, his tailored suit rumpled as he waved a service invoice. "This is outrageous," he shouted, drawing eyes from technicians and customers alike. "I bought a $50,000 sedan from you last month, and it's already in the shop with engine issues. Your team promised it was fixed, but it broke down again yesterday." Tom tried to calm him, his voice strained. "Mr. Larson, I'm sorry. Let me check the repair history. Don't give me excuses." Larson cut in, slamming the invoice on the counter. "I trusted your brand, and you're selling me lemons. I want this fixed, or I'm taking my business elsewhere, and I'll make sure everyone knows why." James's heart sank. This was Daniel Hayes' story all over again, a customer betrayed by his dealership's promises. He stepped forward, keeping Mike's persona intact. "Sir, I'll pull your file right now. We'll figure this out." He shot Tom a quick look, and the manager nodded gratefully. Rushing to the computer dot as James flipped through the file, Robert appeared, his sharp suit and smug demeanor out of place in the gritty service bay. "What's the problem here?" he asked, his tone more annoyed than concerned. Larson turned on him, his voice rising. "The problem is your dealership sold me a faulty car and can't fix it. I've been inconvenienced twice, and I'm done with your excuses." Robert waved a hand, his voice cold. "You signed a contract, Mr. Larson. We service the car as requested. If you're having issues, maybe it's how you're driving it." His words were a slap, and Larson's face darkened. "Excuse me?" Larson said, stepping closer. "You're blaming me for your shoddy work. I've bought 5 cars from Carter Auto Group, and this is how you treat me." James's blood boiled. Robert's arrogance wasn't just unprofessional, it was destructive. Before he could intervene, Ethan rushed in from the showroom, having overheard the commotion. "Mr. Larson, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "I helped you with that sedan. Let me get this sorted free of charge. We'll run a full diagnostic and cover any repairs." Larson softened slightly, but Robert cut in, his tone sharp. "Ethan, stay out of this. You don't get to make promises we can't keep." He turned to Larson, his smile forced. "We'll look into it, but no guarantees." Ethan's face flushed, but he held his ground. "Sir, it's the right thing to do. Mr. Larson's a loyal customer." Robert rounded on him, his voice loud enough to echo through the bay. "You don't run this place, Ethan. Get back to the floor before I write you up." Customers and staff froze, the tension thick. Natalie, lingering nearby, smirked, clearly enjoying Ethan's humiliation. James couldn't stay silent. "He's trying to help," he said, his voice steady but firm. "The customer deserves better than this." Robert turned, his eyes narrowing. "Mike, you're a temp. One more word, and you're out the door." He stormed back to his office, leaving Larson fuming and Ethan deflated. The crisis escalated when Natalie, tasked with pulling Larson's repair records, accidentally sent the wrong file to the service team, delaying the diagnostic. Larson, fed up, threatened to sue, his voice carrying to the showroom where customers whispered and pulled out their phones to record. Ethan scrambled to correct the error, apologizing profusely, but the damage was done. A second customer, waiting for a routine oil change, left in frustration, muttering about never returning. James had seen enough. Robert's negligence, Natalie's sabotage, and Ethan's desperate efforts to salvage the situation painted a damning picture. The dealership he built on trust and respect was crumbling, and he couldn't hide behind Mike Larson any longer. He slipped into a back office, his hands trembling as he removed a fake beard and glasses. He smoothed his hair, straightened his posture, and took a deep breath. When he stepped into the showroom, the transformation was immediate. Gone was the slouching temp. In his place stood James Carter, CEO of Carter Auto Group, his presence commanding despite the worn HOODIE. Ethan, at the register, froze, his eyes widening. "Mike?" he whispered, his voice trailing off. James shook his head, his gaze steady. "Ethan, gather the staff in the conference room. I need to speak with everyone." Ethan nodded, still stunned, and began rounding up the team. Sarah looked confused, Natalie wary, and Tom relieved to have backup. Robert stood at the back, his arms crossed, his face pale as he sensed trouble. Customers watched, some lingering to see what would happen. James took a deep breath, his voice clear and firm. "My name is James Carter. I'm the founder and CEO of Carter Auto Group. For the past 5 days, I've been working here as Mike Larson to see what's really going on in my dealership. The room fell silent, the air heavy with shock. Ethan's jaw dropped, Sarah's eyes widened, and Natalie's smirk vanished. Robert's face drained of color, his hands clenching at his sides. "I've seen a lot," James continued, his gaze sweeping the room. Some of it inspiring, some of it unacceptable. "Ethan, you've been the heart of this place, going above and beyond for customers like Mr. Larson, even when you had no support. I can't thank you enough." Ethan's lip quivered, but he managed a nod, his eyes glistening. James turned to Robert, his expression hardening. "Robert, your leadership has been a failure. You've disrespected customers, demoralized your team, and ignored critical issues like faulty equipment and customer complaints. That stops now." Robert opened his mouth to protest, but James held up a hand. "This isn't up for debate. You're suspended pending a full investigation. I want every employee to submit anonymous reports about your conduct through a new hotline we're setting up. We'll handle this fairly, but what I've seen here is inexcusable." Robert's face twisted in anger, but he said nothing, grabbing his jacket and storming out. The door slammed, leaving a stunned silence. James turned to the staff, his tone softening. "I'm not here to tear you down. I'm here to rebuild. Ethan, you're interim manager, effective immediately. You've been doing a manager's job without the title. It's time that changed." Ethan's eyes widened, his voice barely audible. "Me? Are you serious?" "Absolutely," James said, a small smile breaking through his intensity. "You've earned it." He addressed the group again. "We're going back to the values this company was founded on: trust, respect, and teamwork. I'll be here to make sure it happens. For now, let's get through the day and take care of our customers." As the team dispersed, Ethan approached James, his voice soft. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," James said, his tone warm. "And call me James." He glanced at the showroom, where Mr. Larson was still waiting, his expression softer now as Ethan approached to resolve his issue. The weight of what James had done settled over him. He'd taken a stand, but the real work, fixing the culture, rebuilding trust, was just beginning. The morning after James Carter revealed his identity as the CEO of Carter Auto Group, the flagship dealership in the suburban hub felt like a place holding its breath. The showroom, with its polished cars and gleaming floors, buzzed with a cautious energy, as if the staff were waiting to see what would come next. James stood in the conference room before the opening shift, no longer disguised as Mike Larson, but as himself, his sleeves rolled up, his expression a mix of determination and humility. Ethan Parker, now interim manager, stood beside him, his new badge pinned to his shirt, his face a blend of pride and nerves. Sarah, the receptionist, sat quietly, her usual indifference softened by curiosity. Natalie Green, Robert Mitchell's former ally, leaned against the wall, her arms crossed, her eyes wary. The absence of Robert, suspended pending investigation, left a void, but James knew replacing one manager wouldn't fix the deeper issues. The real work, rebuilding trust and restoring his company's values, started. Now, James had spent the night on the phone with Laura Bennett, his trusted assistant, hammering out a plan. "We need a permanent manager here, someone who can lead with integrity," he told her. "And I want company-wide reforms, training, equipment upgrades, feedback systems." Laura, ever pragmatic, had cautioned him. "Change is messy, James. Not everyone's going to buy in, especially if they're loyal to Robert." Her words lingered as he addressed the staff. "Thank you for showing up today," James began, his voice steady but warm. "Yesterday was a wake-up call for me and for this dealership. I saw what you're up against. and I'm here to make it right. Ethan's stepping up as interim manager, and we'll have a new permanent manager soon. We're fixing the equipment, streamlining processes, and setting up an anonymous hotline for your feedback. This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about rebuilding trust for you and our customers. The staff nodded, some exchanging glances. Ethan stepped forward, his voice tentative but clear. I'm new to this, but I'll give it everything I've got. If you need anything, my door's open. His sincerity was palpable, and James felt a surge of confidence in his choice. Sarah gave a small smile, but Natalie's expression remained guarded, her silence louder than words. By the next day, James had brought in Claire Adams, a seasoned manager from a top-performing Carter Auto Group location on the coast. Claire, in her early 40s, had a reputation for fairness and efficiency, her calm presence a stark contrast to Robert's volatility. She arrived with a tablet full of notes and a quiet authority, gathering the team before the morning rush. I'm here to work with you, she said, standing in the showroom center. We're going to make this dealership a place you're proud of, but it'll take all of us. Let's start fresh and build something great. Claire moved quickly. She scheduled repairs for the service department's outdated diagnostic machines and allocated a budget for system upgrades, approved by James on the spot. She introduced daily team briefings to align goals and address issues, and she worked alongside the staff, assisting with customer negotiations and troubleshooting service delays. Ethan, under Claire's guidance, began learning to manage schedules and resolve conflicts, his confidence growing with each shift. He assigned Natalie to the finance desk, hoping to channel her energy, but her attitude remained a problem. This is busy work, she muttered during a briefing, tossing a pen onto the table. Robert never made us jump through these hoops. James, observing from a corner office during an unannounced visit, overheard Natalie's complaints. He jotted in his notebook, Natalie resistant, loyal to Robert. Monitor closely. He admired Claire's patience as she pulled Natalie aside, her voice firm but kind. If you don't want to be here, Natalie, that's your choice. But if you stay, you contribute. No more excuses. Natalie nodded, but her scowl lingered, and James sensed trouble brewing. The first signs of resistance surfaced a few days later. James had implemented a company-wide policy requiring sales staff to complete customer service training and submit anonymous feedback through the hotline. At the flagship dealership, most employees welcomed the changes. Sarah became more attentive at the reception desk, and Tom, the service manager, praised the new diagnostic tools. Ethan thrived in his role, mentoring a new hire, Lila, a shy college student. But Natalie rallied a small group of Robert's former allies, 2 sales associates, Carlos and Derek, to spread discontent. During a break in the employee lounge, James overheard them, Natalie leading the charge. This hotline's a trap, she said, sipping her coffee. They'll fire anyone who complains. And Ethan? He's just Carter's puppet. Robert ran this place better. Carlos, a quiet veteran salesman, hesitated. I don't know, Nat. The new manager's fair, and the service bay's running smoother. Derek, a younger rep, shrugged. More training means more hassle. Natalie's got a point. James's stomach twisted. Natalie's influence was undermining the fragile progress Claire and Ethan were building. He made a mental note to address her behavior directly, but he needed to tread carefully. Dismissing her without evidence could fuel more resentment. He confided in Claire after the shift. Natalie's stirring things up, he said. She's loyal to Robert and dragging others with her. Claire nodded, her expression thoughtful. I'll keep an eye on her. Ethan's doing well, but he's young. He'll need support to handle pushback like this. The tension erupted during a chaotic Friday afternoon. The showroom was packed with weekend shoppers, test drives clogging the lot, and finance deals piling up. Ethan coordinated the sales floor, his voice steady as he directed Lila and Carlos. Claire jumped in, helping a family navigate financing options. Natalie, however, was absent from her post, leaving a customer waiting for a contract. When she finally appeared, her hair mussed from a long break, she brushed off Ethan's request to assist. "Not my fault you can't keep up," she said, loud enough for customers to hear. A woman in a business suit, waiting for her paperwork, frowned and checked her watch. Ethan's face flushed, but he kept his composure, apologizing to the customer and covering Natalie's task. James, watching from a service bay, clenched his fists. He wanted to confront Natalie on the spot, but Claire caught his eye, shaking her head slightly. She handled the customer with a complimentary service voucher, diffusing the situation. Later, during a lull, Claire pulled Natalie into the office, her voice low but firm. "You're on notice, Natalie. Step up or you're out." That evening, a familiar figure appeared at the showroom entrance. Daniel Hayes, the young customer James had seen on his first day, whose car had broken down. Daniel approached Ethan hesitantly, his jacket worn, his eyes tired but hopeful. "I wanted to check on my car," he said. "It's been tough without it. I need it for work." Ethan's face lit up. "Mr. Hayes, I'm glad you're here. We fixed the issue, new transmission, no charge. I'm sorry for what happened before." He led Daniel to the service bay, explaining the repairs with genuine care. Daniel's relief was palpable, and he shook Ethan's hand. "Thanks, man. I didn't expect this. I'll be back for my next car." James watched from a distance, his heart swelling. This was the Carter Auto Group he'd envisioned, a place where customers felt valued, where trust was earned through action. He jotted in his notebook, "Ethan, natural leader. Permanent promotion?" But the harmony was short-lived. That night, Lavra called James with troubling news. "The hotline's getting reports," she said. "Not just about Robert. Some employees are saying the new training's too demanding, that you're out of touch. Natalie's name keeps coming up. She's telling people you're just covering your tracks after going undercover." James's jaw tightened. He'd underestimated Natalie's influence, her ability to sow doubt. The next morning, during a team briefing, Natalie spoke up, her tone defiant. "All this training and hotline stuff, it's just extra work. Why should we trust you, Mr. Carter? You didn't care until you played your little game." The room went quiet, eyes darting to James. Ethan looked stricken, Sarah tense. James stepped forward, his voice calm but resolute. "Natalie, I hear you. Change isn't easy. But I was here, working with you, seeing what you face every day. These reforms aren't to make your life harder. They're to make it better. If you've got ideas, share them. If you don't want to be part of this, that's your choice. But this team deserves more than negativity." Natalie didn't respond, her eyes dropping to the floor. James turned to the group. "I'm hosting an open meeting tomorrow. Bring your concerns, your ideas. I'm listening." He caught Ethan's eye, and the young manager gave a small nod. His resolve firmed on as the shift ended. James pulled Claire aside. "Natalie's a problem," he said. "She's undermining Ethan and the team. We need to act if she doesn't turn around." Claire nodded. "I've got this. Ethan's stepping up, but he'll need backup. I'll coach him through handling." James left the dealership that night, the weight of Natalie's resistance heavy but not insurmountable. Daniel's return, Ethan's leadership, and Claire's steady hand gave him hope. The fight to rebuild Carter Auto Group was far from over, but James was ready to see it through. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the sprawling lot of Carter Auto Group's flagship dealership. James Carter stood outside, his hands in his pockets, watching the showroom pulse with a renewed energy. It had been 3 weeks since he'd shed his Mike Larson disguise and revealed himself as the CEO, suspending Robert Mitchell and promoting Ethan Parker to interim manager. The reforms he'd set in motion, new leadership, equipment upgrades, and an anonymous feedback hotline were taking hold, but the journey had been fraught with challenges. Natalie Green's resistance had threatened to derail progress, and hotline reports had uncovered issues across his 35 dealerships. Tonight, as he prepared to return to headquarters, James felt a mix of pride and resolve. The dealership was on the mend, but had he truly restored the trust and respect he'd built his empire on? Inside, the showroom was a far cry from the cold, chaotic place James had first entered. Customers browsed sedans and SUVs, greeted by sales associates whose smiles were genuine, not forced. The air smelled of fresh coffee and leather, mingling with the hum of negotiations and the soft ring of the reception phone. Ethan, now interim manager, moved with quiet confidence, directing the team while assisting a young couple with financing options. Claire Adams, the permanent manager, was in the service bay, reviewing repair logs with Tom, the service manager. Sarah, the once indifferent receptionist, now welcomed guests with warmth, her phone tucked away. Even Natalie, Robert's former ally, worked the finance desk with focus, her defiance softened by Claire's firm guidance. James's first stop was Claire's office, where she was finalizing the day's reports. She looked up, her expression warm but professional. "James, good timing. The team's hitting its stride. Ethan's a natural leader. He's already streamlined our sales process, and customer feedback's up 20%. James nodded, a smile breaking through his intensity. I knew he'd step up. How's Natalie? She was a tough sell. Claire leaned back, her tone thoughtful. She's coming around. I had a blunt talk with her after her outburst last week. She's still prickly, but she's delivering. I think Ethan's example and the new training are sinking in. Good, James said, jotting in his notebook. And the hotline? Any new reports? Mostly positive, Claire replied. A few scheduling gripes, but employees here feel heard. The new diagnostic tools in the service bay are a game changer. We're seeing fewer repeat repairs, like Mr. Larson's issue. James's relief was tempered by the outcome of Robert's investigation. Laura and HR had concluded their review, confirming multiple reports of verbal abuse, favoritism toward Natalie, and neglect of customer complaints. Robert's file showed a capable manager who'd once excelled at a smaller dealership, but the pressure of the flagship location had warped him. In a meeting earlier that week, James had faced him across a conference table. Robert's usual arrogance replaced by a quiet unease. "Robert," James had said, his voice firm but fair, "the evidence is clear. You created a toxic environment berating staff, dismissing customers like Mr. Larson, ignoring equipment issues. That's not the Carter Auto Group way." Robert's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I was under pressure, Mr. Carter. The sales targets, the complaints, I didn't handle it well." "I get that," James said, leaning forward. "But it's no excuse for mistreating your team or our customers. You're terminated, effective immediately. However, I believe in redemption. We'll fund a leadership training program at another company. If you want to rebuild, that's your chance. But you can't stay here." Robert exhaled, his shoulders sagging. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice cracking. "I won't waste this." He left quietly, and James felt a weight lift, knowing he'd balanced accountability with compassion. Back at the dealership, James's thoughts were interrupted by a familiar figure at the showroom entrance, Daniel Hayes, the young customer whose faulty car had sparked James's mission. Daniel approached Ethan, his worn jacket replaced by a clean one, his eyes brighter. "Hey, Ethan," he said, a smile tugging at his lips. "I wanted to thank you for fixing my car." It's running great, and I got a promotion at work because I could drive again. Ethan's face lit up. That's awesome, Daniel. You're welcome back anytime. Maybe we'll get you into a new model one day. He led Daniel to a coffee station, chatting like old friends. James watched from a distance, his heart swelling. This was the dealership he'd envisioned, a place where trust was rebuilt through action, where customers like Daniel felt valued. The harmony was tested during a busy Saturday rush. The lot was packed, test drives weaving through rows of gleaming cars. Ethan coordinated the sales floor, his voice steady as he directed Lila and Carlos. Claire jumped in, helping a family navigate a trade-in deal. Natalie, however, slipped back into old habits, lingering by the finance desk while a customer waited for paperwork. Ethan approached her, his tone firm but calm. Natalie, we need you on that contract. The customer's been waiting 10 minutes. Natalie rolled her eyes but complied, her movements brisk. James, observing from the service bay, noted the exchange. Natalie was improving, but her loyalty to Robert's ways lingered. He pulled Claire aside later. Natalie's better, but she's still a wild card. Keep coaching her. Claire nodded. She's testing boundaries. Ethan's handling her well. I'm teaching him to set clear expectations. She either adapt or leave. That afternoon, James hosted the open meeting he'd promised, inviting staff to share concerns and ideas. The conference room was full, the atmosphere a mix of caution and hope. Sarah suggested flexible schedules to reduce burnout. Tom proposed a customer loyalty program. Natalie, to James's surprise, spoke up, her voice hesitant. The new training's tough, but it's helping me close deals faster. Maybe we could do role plays to practice. Her suggestion was practical, a sign she was trying. James thanked. His tone encouraging, and promised to implement the ideas as the meeting ended. James approached Ethan, who was organizing sales reports. You're doing an incredible job, he said, his voice genuine. I saw you with Daniel. That's what this company's about. Ethan blushed, scratching his neck. Just doing what's right, James. I want this place to feel like a team, you know? James reached into his briefcase, pulling out an envelope. This is for you, a $5,000 bonus for your leadership and for setting the standard. Starting next month, you're enrolled in our management training program. And we're launching an education assistance fund. You mentioned studying business. Carter Auto Group will cover part of your tuition. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened the envelope, his eyes widening at the check. This is unreal. Thank you, James. I don't know what to say. You've earned it, James said firmly. You're not just interim anymore. Corporates approved your permanent promotion to manager. Claire, standing nearby, gave Ethan a proud smile, her eyes misty. James turned to the team, catching Natalie's eye. She'd been working the register, her movements more purposeful. Natalie, he said quietly, you're making strides. Keep it up, and there's a place for you here. Natalie nodded, a flicker of sincerity in her eyes, a sign that Claire's coaching was taking hold. Over the next week, James worked with Laura and his corporate team to roll out reforms across all 35 dealerships. Sales staff underwent customer service training. Service departments received modern equipment, and the hotline was expanded with a dedicated response team. James visited other locations in person, listening to employees and customers, determined to stay connected. The changes weren't perfect, some resisted, and operational hiccups persisted, but customer reviews improved and employee turnover slowed. Back at the flagship, James stopped by unannounced one evening. The showroom was bustling, the atmosphere warm and inviting. Ethan trained Lila, his patience a model for others. Claire shared a laugh with Tom over a service report. Natalie assisted a customer with financing, her smile genuine. As James walked through, he noticed Ethan helping a wheelchair-bound customer navigate the lot, his care mirroring his kindness to Daniel. James beamed, knowing his legacy was in safe hands. As he left, James paused by the glowing Carter Auto Group sign, reflecting on his journey. He'd made mistakes, letting distance erode trust, but he'd learned the power of listening and acting. Carter Auto Group wasn't just a business. It was a community built on people like Ethan, Claire, and even Natalie, who'd found a path forward. James vowed to never lose sight of the ground floor again. This story of James Carter and Carter Auto Group is a powerful reminder that leadership is rooted in responsibility, not power. James's undercover journey shows that true change begins with listening to employees like Ethan, to customers like Daniel, to the heartbeat of a business. Ethan's compassion and Natalie's redemption arc highlight the transformative impact of trust and second chances. The story teaches us that respect and accountability are the foundations of any community, whether a dealership or a family. It's a call to lead with empathy, to own our mistakes, and to empower others to rise. If this story inspired you, there's more to discover. Subscribe to Legacy Stories on YouTube for tales of humanity, leadership, and transformation. Like, comment, and share where you're watching from. Join our global community celebrating stories that matter. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's keep these stories alive. For extra support, tap the 3 dots near the share button and send a super thanks. Thank you for being part of our journey. See you in the next story.